I wanted to do a reaction video to this gentleman's video. I actually like this guy a lot. His name is Ando Mirzwa. I like how he promotes self-defense, he promotes realistic self-defense, and he promotes martial arts in a way that make it easier for everyone to do martial arts, which is something that I've started coming to realize that that's what I needed to do for myself. And I'm going to show where I disagree with him, why I disagree with him, and how maybe I could help some people that are older retain their ability to practice martial arts into an older age, or not even older. Maybe it's best if you start younger to do some of the things that I'm going to explain that will help you to preserve your ability to practice martial arts like Taekwondo, Tang, Judo, etc. into a later age. But I want to start with this gentleman's video, and I'm going to react to it where I feel that I'm going to react, where I want to react to it, and then I'm going to elaborate with my video.
Happy Life Martial Arts. My first formal martial arts training was in Taekwondo, ITF if you're interested. I stayed long enough to earn my first black belt, but I never wore it. Instead, I went out searching for a different art. And since some people have asked me why, today I thought I'd tell you.
Now, this is not uncommon. A lot of people will get their black belt and then they drop out of karate, or like this gentleman did, they'll look for a different martial art to practice. Some people like me, while I was taking Tang Judo, I was also actively taking Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, and I was also, of course it was in my system was military combatives, but I was a big, I wanted to learn Jiu-Jitsu because Jiu-Jitsu was the thing. It was the beginning of the MMA stuff, and it was, that was a big deal. The Jiu-Jitsu was a big deal, grappling was a big deal, and I didn't want to lose out. Later I found, karate is pretty decent on its own, but let's continue here with this gentleman's video.
First off, if you click this video hoping to hear me bash Taekwondo, no, that's not going to happen. The fact is, I learned many important lessons as a student of Taekwondo. At one point in my life, it was the perfect art for me. So, if you're training in Taekwondo and it's the perfect art for you, keep going. But for me, eventually there were two reasons that convinced me to quit. One might sound a little silly, the other's more serious. Let's start with silly. Reason number...
Now this, I'm going to go over, this is what I'm going to break down, very much so. The other one, this is the first reason. You don't have to lose as much functionality as you get older. There are different ways to retain functionality. I myself had to realize that as I'm not that old. I'm almost 40, but I'm more flexible than most people in their earlier, their teenage years and their early 20s. And the reason why is because I practiced and continue to practice flexibility training and strength training.
1, fear of the future. Here's the thing. I wanted to find an art that I could still be pretty good at in my 60s, 70s, and dare I say beyond. But in Taekwondo, even in my physical prime, I found myself spending more time stretching and conditioning than actually practicing fighting skills, which is what I wanted to learn.
Now, the thing is, when you practice Taekwondo or other martial arts like that, a good portion of your time needs to be spent practicing stretching and conditioning skills. And that's just part of the overall martial arts. In general, that's part of martial arts, I would say. Now, the self-defense fighting skills, favoring those with things like combatives. Now, you can learn how to be very proficient in self-defense skills, okay, into your 90s or hundreds even, because self-defense skills, if done properly, don't really require that much oomph. Okay. However, in certain situations, you are going to have to be well physically conditioned and mentally conditioned, and that's where a lot of the physical conditioning comes in. But let's continue.
Now, don't get me wrong, I believe in staying in shape, but I don't believe that I should have to be able to do a full split to be at my best. And it wasn't just me whining about this, by the way. My instructors were always complaining about how their backs hurt, or their legs were getting tighter, or how their bodies were slowing down. And these instructors were always complaining about how their backs hurt, or their legs were getting tighter, or how their bodies were slowing down. And these guys were in their 30s.
Now, this is something that you will see commonly in the martial arts. A lot of times when people stop doing and start teaching, they get very heavy, their bodies lose flexibility, and they lose the suppleness that they had before, not because they're getting old, simply because they're not conditioning themselves as much as they were. They're not doing the flexibility training, they're not doing the aerobic conditioning, and they're continuing to eat as though they were. Most people should follow a calorically restricted diet. Taking a martial arts class 1 or 3 times a week, 1, 2, or 3 times a week, is not going to be enough for most people to maintain the average American diet. And even if you want your body to function like an athlete's, you have to feed it like an athlete's. And the average American diet, not the USDA diet, but the average American diet does not fuel an athletic body. I would highly recommend people watch any of my videos on diet, but I would also suggest people look into what the USDA recommends and actually look at it and say, oh, wow, that might make sense. Maybe I should do that. Or even better, look at the Harvard Healthy Plate. But the other thing is, you can't stop doing martial arts and expect to be able to do martial arts. The problem is, if you're going from not doing martial arts to doing martial arts, I just recently had this happen to me, you're probably going to hurt yourself because you're going to be not at the top of your game. And also with instructors, if you're not spending the time stretching and conditioning and exercising, you're not going to be able to move your body the way that you used to be able to move it. And this is true for people of all ages. A child, even though they have more flexibility, generally speaking, than an adult, they do not have the flexibility of a martial artist until they become a martial artist. And that's the thing, is you can't expect to teach martial arts without practicing them and expect there to be no repercussions from going cold and just doing whatever.
Instructors were always complaining about how their backs hurt, or their legs were getting tighter, or how their bodies were slowing down. And these guys were in their 30s. Their 30s. Look, growing older is going to put limitations on everyone. I get that. But I got the feeling that if I stayed in Taekwondo, I would be facing more limitations than students of other arts. Can you practice Taekwondo without all the fancy high kicks? Of course you can. But I personally hated the idea of devoting years of my life to developing skills that would only get harder to do over time, not easier. I also didn't like the idea of possibly needing hip replacements. And yes, I know there are 60 and 70-year-old Taekwondo masters out there who can still kick like they're 20. Good for them. I just wasn't sure if I could be one of them. Bottom line, my fears and insecurities were telling me that if I stayed in Taekwondo, by the time I hit 60, I'd be breaking my bones instead of boards. The second reason I quit Taekwondo, in case you thought that first reason was a little silly, is that Taekwondo was 4 arts in one. Taekwondo.
Now, I want to make sure, I'm going to elaborate on this. There's a reason why. These things are required to become a well-rounded martial artist in that martial art of Taekwondo, or in my martial art of Tang Judo. They're required. in order to become well-rounded. And the thing is, these things do correlate with one another if they're being taught properly.
Was 4 arts in one. I don't know about your school, but in my Taekwondo school, we practiced a lot of forms. We also practiced free sparring. But wait, there's more. We also practiced 3 steps and 1 steps. We also practiced...
Now, the thing is, with the 1 steps, 3 steps, and self-defense, they correlate with one another, or at least they do in Tang Judo. I don't know about, I would assume they do in Tang Judo and Taekwondo as well. So 1 steps, and we just do 1 steps, but 1 steps do very well correlate to self-defense, and also to knife defense. They can correlate to free fighting. The thing with free fighting is not, there's no grappling involved in free fighting. So that's the one problem is, if you had the grappling and free fighting, if you're using, you would be able to use 1 steps and self-defense in that. In fact, it would just be mixed martial arts. How mixed martial arts works, that would be the application of 1 steps and the self-defense would work fairly well in that type of scenario. It doesn't work exactly as planned. You have to modify it to go with the free movement of grappling and with the free movement of a mixed martial arts situation. Like, the techniques are not going to be as pre-programmed. But the learning of these techniques in 1 step manner, as I shown in the past, the Marine Corps practices 1 steps. They call it line fighting, and this allows them to be able to kill with proficiency in combat. That's the goal of the 1 steps and the self-defense, is that it allows you to have these things in your mind on how to react to a grab, or how to react to a generic punch, or a generic choke, or a generic, you know what I'm saying? So, but you have to be able to react. You have to have the ability to flow with the technique, to flow with the free motion of what's going on. And that's one of the reasons I did take up grappling, was grappling has some benefits over karate in the sense that you can go full bore in grappling and not kill your opponent. If I was to go full bore in a karate match and just wail the hell out of my partner, there's a good chance I would seriously injure or kill the person. Or if they were to do that to me, there's a good chance that they would seriously injure or kill me. So you can't go full force in karate fighting, okay? It's just not, unless it's a full contact tournament. But if you were to do that every day, 3, or not every day, but 3 times a week or 4 times a week, whatever you take karate class, 3 or 4 times a week, you know, you can't go full contact 3 or 4 times a week. You'd die, okay? And to be quite honest, it's very dangerous to do that anyway. So that's one of the benefits of grappling, is it does allow you to go full bore without killing the people. However, if you were to add the kicks and the punches that we use in karate, that would end very badly in a grappling situation, because you can't take that type of punishment every day. And actually what's funny is a lot of guys, instructors of mine that have done grappling, their bodies are wearing out from the grappling, not so much the Tang Judo. So their bodies are wearing out from the grappling, from getting pulled and whatnot, more so than the Tang Judo. But that's because the Tang Judo is not full force. The grappling, you can go full force. Grappling can be done full force without killing the opponent. So they're going 3, 4, 5, sometimes 6 days a week grappling, and they're literally having their bodies pulled apart on a daily basis. So let's continue.
Self-defense techniques for grabs and chokes and weapons. We also spent a lot of time stretching and conditioning. We also broke boards. The way I saw it, we were being asked to improve 4 distinct sets of skills: forms, free sparring, prearranged sparring, and self-defense. Now, that wouldn't be a problem if the principles and movements were the same between each of the sets of skills, but they weren't. The principles and movements that we practiced in forms were completely different from the principles and movements that we practiced in principles and movements that we practiced in forms were completely different from the principles and movements that we practiced in sparring or self-defense.
Now this, I do agree with to a large extent what he's saying here. Some of the movements and forms apply to self-defense. Very few apply to sparring. That's true. There's been a lot of martial artists that have updated their forms simply because of this. And that is to make the forms more practical. My instructor has added a number of forms. We call them demo forms, but they're really, I think he wants to phase them in as regular forms eventually. But they're used to use practical fighting drills as a form, and practical fighting drills with some more acrobatic techniques, which show, that, to phase those in as being more practical movements than the traditional forms. But the traditional forms, the low stances and the movements of the traditional forms, as well as the breathing techniques, are used to, they're conditioning. They condition the body to do other things. They're an exercise. Similar to, say, Tai Chi or Qi Kong. Actually, almost exactly like Tai Chi or Qi Kong. They're conditioning, and they condition the body to move. They condition the muscles. They condition the tendons. They condition the other stuff. Now, do I think there's more practical ways to condition the body? Absolutely. And I'm going to get into that as I go over how to prolong one's ability to practice the martial arts.
I mean, completely different. Talk about confusing. Should I stay on the balls of my feet and bounce around, or stay low and drive my heel into the floor? Boy, dropping to a knee with a spinning knife hand sure looks cool when we do one-steps. I wonder why no one does that in forms, sparring, or self-defense. What's up with wrist locks? They work great with the rubber knives, but I can't grab anybody's hand when we spar. Is that even legal? Why does that black belt look so powerful when he does his forms, but keep getting kicked in the face when we spar? Why won't they let me wear a red uniform? Someday, I will wear red. To be fair, my biggest gripe with Taekwondo was not the art. It was how the art was being taught in my school. 10 minutes of this, 15 minutes of that, 20 minutes of something else. Just when I was making progress in one set of skills, we'd switch to a different set of skills. It felt like TKD suffered from...
Now, this is one of the things that I think that people need to understand, and we would do tutoring in the sense that if you had weak points, like if you were weak in forms or things like that, and you couldn't make your test, you have 3 tests per belt. Okay, for most belts. Some belts have 6 tests. So before you can transition to the next belt, you have to pass those 3 tests before you take the belt test. And if you were lacking, it would be recommended that you work on weak points. Long time ago, we used to have specific skills taught on specific days. But of course, as the school grew, that was no longer feasible. So what had to happen was there had to be, like he's saying, we would do 15 minutes of this, 20 minutes of that, what have you. But the point is that, again, these are required to be well-rounded in these skills. Now, what I would say is that these are all necessary, but people also need, if they have the time, and this is especially true with children. Children don't put in the effort that they need to for martial arts, and most adults don't either. But if you have the time to practice your techniques, your ilsu sik and other technique. Ilsu sik is one steps. If you have the time to practice these things, you need to. Just like you need, like say you're watching TV. Well, during watching TV, that's a fine time to stretch. Stretching is very important to the practice of martial arts. I don't think that it's fair to say that TKD suffers from ADHD, which is a humorous way of saying that. I think people need to understand that they're not going to be good at everything, but they should try to be. You know, it's like school. You have to focus on your weak points, not your strong points.
ADHD, which taught me an important lesson as a student and then later as a teacher. Sometimes the more you learn, the less you learn.
Do you want Doug Mastery?
The less you learn. Maybe that's why arts like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, boxing, or the sport of MMA in general have been growing in popularity.
Now, I do agree with him in this respect. I do think that for me though, but this is the thing, I think that practical self-defense and physical fitness are the absolute most important things that martial arts has to offer. So I think that favoring combatives over combatives and free fighting over forms is the way to go. I've always thought that way. However, that's my opinion. And like this guy did, and I think it's great that he did this, he founded his own martial art where he could do what he wanted to do. Okay, but the thing is, people need to remember that just because something is what they believe doesn't necessarily make it true. Taekwondo is not Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, boxing, or MMA. So we need to keep that in mind, that Taekwondo is more well-rounded. Does that mean Taekwondo is better suited for self-defense or better suited for fighting? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I would honestly think that a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy, well, maybe not a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy per se, but for the most part, the average Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy or the average MMA guy is going to mop the floor with the average Taekwondo guy, as would the average Muay Thai boxer. One of the things that in Tang Judo we do is we keep our guard up like a boxer. They don't do that in Taekwondo. Why don't they do that in Taekwondo? Taekwondo is a sport. They wear chest protectors. They have a very open stance. They keep their hands low. It's very easy. If you fight them in tournaments, it's very easy to hit them in the head with anything, with a punch or a kick. And Tang Judo is probably the most similar thing to Taekwondo, because Taekwondo came from Tang Judo. But the thing is, with Taekwondo, they have very specific rules. So Taekwondo is great for being Taekwondo. How it matches up to other martial arts, probably not that great. As far as fighting and self-defense goes. However, for the other things, Taekwondo is a complete martial art. It has forms. It has self-defense. It has all these things. So it's balanced. It's a more balanced art than those arts. So it depends on what you want. What do you want in a martial art?
Maybe that's why arts like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, boxing, or the sport of MMA in general have been growing in popularity. It's not that their techniques are necessarily more effective than any other arts. It might just be because they offer a more focused training experience.
And that's the thing, is you're going to get good at what you do. So what he's explaining here, Taekwondo techniques are extremely effective techniques. However, you're going to get good at what you do. That's why, in my opinion, it's better to favor fighting drills. It's better to favor ilsu sik, or one steps. It's better to favor self-defense, and it's better to favor military-style combatives than it is to favor everything. However, when you take a complete martial art like Taekwondo or Tang Judo, it's not going to be as focused on one thing. And you have to understand this too. It depends on who your market is. Taekwondo and Tang Judo, it favors a family atmosphere, okay? And I think that when you have children or adolescents or people that are just generally nerdy, maybe they don't want to be the greatest fighter in the world, but maybe they want to excel at forms. Maybe they want to excel at other things. And that's fine. And you have to remember, this guy is being honest. This video is on why he left Taekwondo. And he doesn't encourage you to leave Taekwondo. If you like Taekwondo, stay with Taekwondo. And my video is not bashing this guy. I'm just letting this play out so that his video gets full coverage, and I encourage people to subscribe to his channel. I just made this video to show maybe older martial artists or younger, older martial artists why they don't necessarily have to stop doing what they're doing. And I want to help younger martial artists not have to stop. And I'm going to actually do some instructional videos as soon as I can sync up with my friend again to record me on corrective exercises, which I'm going to go over later. So let's continue.
Focused training experience leads to more consistent skill development, which leads to more confidence, which leads to feeling great instead of confused and frustrated. Let me give you an...
Well, I would say this, though. More consistent class attendance leads to more consistent skill development. That's another problem that you have, is a lot of people are not consistent at making classes or consistent with practicing.
Example. If you check out a typical BJJ class, you're going to practice the same moves the same way throughout the entire class. The moves that you practice in warm-ups are the same moves you practice in drilling. And the moves you practice in drilling, you're going to use when you practice rolling. And guess what? When you come back to the next class, you're going to practice those same moves the same way all over again. Now, that sounds like such an obvious teaching methodology, doesn't it? Repetition. But not all arts do that. Many schools break up their art into jagged pieces that don't easily fit back together again. As a result, as a student, you can end up feeling like you're making slow progress, or worse, no progress. For the record, like BJJ, I found a very focused training experience in Aikido. Sure, lots of people love to make fun of Aikido for spending all of their time on a relatively small number of techniques. On the other hand, they spend all of their time on a small number of techniques. Even when we practice with a jo or a sword, those movements were directly related to the empty hand techniques. As a result, when I would walk out of an Aikido class, those techniques really stuck with me. Now, unfortunately, where I felt Taekwondo offered too many skills to master, I felt that Aikido didn't offer me enough. So I quit that art too. But are you going to hear me bash Aikido? No. The fact is, I learned a lot of important lessons there too. So, to be clear, I have nothing but respect for every style of martial arts. Each one can teach you something, or many things. I'm also not saying that all traditional styles, Taekwondo, karate, kung fu, suffer from being four arts in one. Some schools are excellent at building connections between forms and drills and sparring and self-defense. But years ago, when I was searching for a more focused Taekwondo school, I couldn't find one. Thankfully, I eventually found styles and, more importantly, teachers who made me happy. Which styles were those? It doesn't matter. That's my martial arts journey, not yours. It doesn't matter.
Now, this is what I like about this video. He makes it very clear that this is his martial arts journey. Not mine, not yours, not anyone else's. This is why he left Taekwondo, why he left Aikido, and not why you should or shouldn't. And he's very clear on that, which I find very responsible and very nice of him to do that. Very clear, very honest.
That's my martial arts journey, not yours. It doesn't matter. That's my martial arts journey, not yours. I would prefer if you took a moment to ask yourself, am I getting what I want out of my style, my school, and my teacher? If you are, then stay right there. Work as hard as you can for as long as you can. But if you're not getting what you want, hey, no hard feelings. Take a look around and see if you can find a style or a school that will help you meet your goals. Just remember this, you don't have to hate where you are to be excited about where you're going. Everything is worth something. If you like this video, thanks for subscribing to the channel and sharing with a friend.
And I would strongly recommend people subscribe to his channel and share his videos. Now I'm going to continue. So what is corrective exercise? All exercise is not created equal and doesn't serve the same purpose. Bodybuilding focuses on developing a specific type of physique or body shape irrespective of underlying dysfunction. Strength training, as you can guess, is focused on developing specific strength. Corrective exercise, on the other hand, is a form of exercise that focuses on restoring good posture and musculoskeletal balance, fixing any dysfunction, and bringing the body back to its normal state. This could be done before embarking on any bodybuilding, strength training, or cardiovascular pursuits. I would recommend that this be done instead, and I'm going to get into why. See, about 2 months ago, I was practicing karate, practicing Tang Judo, and I did a double jump front kick. My body works fine because I make a habit of doing corrective exercises. My body works fine. I don't have a problem with how my body works. My jump was fine. My timing was off. So when I stuck my landing on my toes of my right foot, nearly breaking my foot and ankle. It's actually miraculous. Actually, my bone density is quite good because of the supplements I take, was not what I was told, but I have very good bone density. However, there was probably some soft tissue damage, and I've had to do more. I've had to wear an ankle brace and things of that nature. So corrective exercise, I think, should be at the forefront of everyone's health program, along with proper diet, okay? So here are some examples of a corrective exercise program, what a corrective exercise program could include. Breathing exercises to restore proper breathing pattern, myofascial release of tight areas, e.g. foam rolling, stretching of shortened muscles, like the calves, strengthening exercises for weak muscles, deep core muscles. Also, you can use traditional bodybuilding type exercises, but the goal there is not to gain, super strength. Okay, it's to gain enough strength to hold the body properly. Exercises to correct ankle and foot mechanics, which is what I'm doing a lot of right now. Mobility exercises for joints, like the shoulders and hips. Balancing exercises. It is also crucial to note that in order for these exercises to be effective, the corrective exercise program needs to be 100% tailored to your needs. Your body is super unique and will adapt differently to your lifestyle. So an exercise that will be beneficial for your best friend could be completely counterproductive for you. I don't necessarily agree with that. Okay, that's a little ridiculous. I don't see exercises as counterproductive, although I do think that one should learn what is helping them. But you have to remember, focus on your weak points. Okay, so typically when developing a program, it is advisable always to begin with a detailed assessment of your static and dynamic posture. Okay, this assessment will help us blah, blah, blah. Okay. These are some of the benefits of what are the benefits of corrective exercise? It helps eliminate pain. It helps in injury prevention. It helps in injury recovery. It improves athletic performance. It improves feelings of general well-being. Okay? So what are common fitness issues among seniors. Now, what I want to point out, these are not any more common fitness issues with seniors. These are common fitness issues with everyone. So poor balance, loss of strength, joint pain, poor flexibility, low cardiovascular capacity, increased body fat, reduced agility. What causes fitness problems in seniors? Sedentariness, chronic disease, physical injury, sensory impairments. How can corrective exercise help? In general, exercise slows the aging process. Keep that in mind. Exercise slows the aging process, and this has been proven by the work of people like Dr. Morgan Levine, and I highly encourage people to read Dr. Morgan Levine's book, True Age. Again, please read Dr. Levine's book, True Age. Physical activity improves overall health, reduces symptoms of chronic diseases, and improves motor function. Research has found that seniors who are more physically active than their peers are at lower risk for walking difficulties and movement problems. A 2015 study found that more physical activity was associated with better motor function and that it was brain protective. Study participants who developed age-related brain lesions age-related brain lesions but were still physically active did not experience a decline in motor skills from the effects of the lesions. One of the researchers stated physical activity may create a reserve that protects motor abilities against the effects of age-related brain damage. Strength training is appropriate for people of all ages and should be included in every older adult's fitness program. Parkinson's. Okay, these are common. What are some common movement issues among seniors? Parkinson's disease, ataxia, tremor. What causes movement issues in seniors? Blah blah blah. Okay. So, what corrective exercises are appropriate for seniors? Alternating lunges, single leg stand, sit to stand, triceps kickbacks, chair leg raises. Now, what you have to understand with these, you can use support. I wouldn't necessarily recommend alternating lunges to somebody that hasn't done them before. Like what I would recommend is slowly strengthening the legs before you do something like alternating lunges. But for example, the single leg stands, you can use the wall for support, things of that nature. Okay, knee pain. These are exercises for knee pain. Straight leg raise, seated hip abduction, seated toe taps, hip raise, which is the bridge. It's a pelvic bridge. Chair squat, calf raise, step up, lunges. With hip pain, you would do leg swings, lateral squat, standing hip abduction, side step jacks. Okay, Superman, lower back pain, Supermans, seated knee lifts, leg extensions, pelvic tilt, hip flexation, shoulder pain, chest press, shoulder rolls, shoulder press, lateral raise, arm circles. With the chest press, a lot of people, they get discouraged because they can't maybe do a push-up. They might not even be able to do a modified push-up. You can do push-ups against the wall and slowly add resistance that way too. How long should the corrective exercise program be? When it comes to corrective exercise programs, the goal is always to get them back to a pain-free functional status. This may take longer for some clients than others. Really, honestly, the length of a corrective exercise program should be forever. It should be for your whole life. Okay? The same thing with how long should you eat a healthy diet? Well, your whole life. So this is from the website Longevity Technology, and you have to embrace a longevity lifestyle, of course. If you want to reach a lifespan of 120 to 150 years, you're going to have to do what you need to do to live that. So a healthy diet, exercise, etc. Benefits of exercise and lifespan, to health and lifespan. Considering that physical inactivity is a major risk factor for cardio and cerebral vascular diseases, the leading causes of morbidity and mortality in high-income countries, exercise is a key to improving longevity. The current guidelines recommend a minimum of 150 minutes per week of moderate to vigorous intensity exercise, ideally a combination of both, as well as twice-weekly strength resistance training. The benefits of exercise are well documented. Physical activity reduces major mortality risk factors, including hypertension, type 2 diabetes, coronary heart disease, stroke, and cancer. This translates into 30% decrease in all-cause mortality. Exercise is associated with a higher life expectancy, an estimated of 0.4 to 6.9 years in people who are physically active compared with those who are inactive. Working out from home, walking, stair climbing. These are some exercises that are going to help you preserve your ability to practice martial arts. I would recommend younger people start doing this, people in their teens and 20s. Walking, stair climbing, working out at your desk, taking regular breaks, blah, blah, blah. Moderate intensity exercise. Aerobic exercise is great for cardiovascular health and requires little or no equipment. Instead, using your own body weight, first ensure you have enough free space in your home before doing a 5-minute warm-up of low-impact exercises and stretches. Create your own short aerobic exercise routine. Vigorous intensity exercises like HIIT. I don't recommend HIIT. And why don't I recommend HIIT? Although karate is very similar to HIIT. I don't recommend HIIT because you should not be in pain from exercising. And I think it's a big risk for not that great of a benefit. You can get the same benefit from low intensity interval training, number one, or just low intensity training, endurance training, or from sprints, regular interval training. Strength training workouts. This involves exercises that strengthen the main muscles of the body, such as lunges, squats, and weightlifting. Either use your own body weight or simple equipment like free weights or resistance bands. Try doing a 30-minute strength workout per week, focusing on different areas of your body. And I'm going to move on here. So these are Nikolay Amasov, who was a Soviet-era Ukrainian surgeon and cybernetics pioneer that incorporated 10 exercises that he did every day to stay healthy. And so your complex Amasov, let's see here. Okay. So this is recommended that you do a jog with maximum acceleration for the last 100 meters, blah, blah, blah. They should be incorporated. Could also be incorporated with a walking routine or something like that. Tilts forward, that's what it looks like. Touch the floor with your fingers, and if it is clear, the head moves in rhythm with the body. Tilts to the side pump, leaning to the left. The right hand pulls to the armpit. Toss your arm and lower back. Okay, the right hand goes to the left shoulder blade, left to right, neck moves to the beat. Hands clasped in the lock on the chest, turn to the left and right, turning at the same time and the head. So the torso and the head turn at the same time. Hand movement should amplify the amplitude. Okay, standing, throwing the knee to the chest, hand pressed as high as possible. Do the alternating movement. You can also do this. This is known as the wind relieving pose. If you do this on your back, it's a yoga pose. It can also be done on the back if that's a little too complex for you. This is what is now called the Superman. So fall the hip joint and stomach on a stool. It doesn't have to be on a stool. You can do these on a floor. Hands in the castle behind the head, and the body stretch the string parallel to the floor, bending at the waist to maximal raise the upper part of the body. So you're strengthening the lower back. You can do these on the floor, as I stated. You put your hands in the back of a chair squat. So this is using a chair for support. So you do that. Put your hands on a couch, or if possible on the from the floor. This is push-ups. As I said, you can do these against the wall if you don't feel secure or strong enough doing them on the floor yet, or even in a modified push-up. So jump on one foot as high as possible. You don't have to do this. What I recommend instead of this is single leg calf raises. This is the birch tree, otherwise known as the shoulder stand, and that's all 10 exercises by Nikolay Amosov. And that will complete this video. I hope you do subscribe to Ando. I like his channel. I strongly recommend people watch his videos. I think that he is offering something very nice and very unique to martial artists. And that's all for this video.